Is this an interaction? Or is this an interaction? In this video, we're going to be talking about some of the key interaction design concepts for Industrial Design 3. Every time that we design a new product, we're designing the use, the functionalities, but we're also designing that user-product interaction. As technologies become more present in our everyday life, in the objects, environments, and the systems we use, designers need to become more aware of what those interactive products would be, how to design them, and especially how to design the dynamic relationship, user-product interaction relationship that it entails. If you look around, you will see and you will identify that there are different kinds of interactive products. I have grouped them in the following areas. So, what is interaction? I asked all your lecturers in industrial design to tell us about what their perspectives are on interaction design for product design. And also I included the views from Jen Sivnik, who is the lecturer in interaction design area.
Okay, so you'd like me to talk about interaction? So for me, interaction is any time when you respond to an object or a person, and then that person or object responds back to you. So interaction is always a two-way communication of some sort, or a two-way. What's the word for it? I was trying to say interaction, but that's a bit stupid. But it's a two-way conversation or a two-way engagement between somebody or something and yourself.
And meanings throughout all sorts of different things. Words, the voice, intonation, interaction, movement of hands, movement of body. And if you think of it in that way, it becomes interesting in terms of human-product interaction.
Interaction for me, I think, in relation to products is really the core of how people use something. I suppose products have lots of different facets, the way they appear, the way they look for observers, for potential purchasers, but interaction is entirely about the users and the people who actually are using a product. I suppose we tend to think of interaction as being to do with just digital things, just things which have screens, but of course you interact with a hammer, you interface with it, you hold it, you hit things with it, everything that you use you interact with, not necessarily physically. So I guess interaction is such a huge topic, and it's really at the very heart of where products and people meet, isn't it?
Okay, so interaction for me is all about communication, and I think that's two-way. So we're talking product design, so I think communication and interaction is about the user understanding what they want to do, and the object communicating back to them what it can do, and then having a reciprocal, dialogue between those two elements to create what the user wants to achieve.
So you could think of interaction in two ways. You could think of it as an action on the behalf of a user or a person, and a reaction on behalf of any kind of system or product. You can also think of it over the longer term. So you can think of it in the same way as we talk about using something. So for example, I do my research about intuitive interaction, but a synonym for that is intuitive use. So the whole behavior of using a product or a system, I would call that would be an interaction or some interaction with that product or system. Just as well, you might say I'm using it, you could say I'm interacting with it. So it might be something that takes a couple of minutes or a couple of hours. So you could see it in that longer term way, over an hour or two or more. You could see it in a short term way. You do something, the system responds, you do something. Each one of those could be defined as an interaction. So there's different ways of defining it depending on your perspective.
You can even think about interaction as a conversation between two people. So it can take lots of unexpected turns and go in different directions. And I think that's what's interesting, is that it's not just immediate feedback, action, response, when it actually becomes more nuanced. So you might have something that's more responsive, it might be delayed response in response to, say, weather sensors outside that change something. So it's not just, you push a button and then something happens. Yeah?
So for their views, interaction comprises a two-way communication. It needs to have meanings. It's about use. It must have intentions. It's about behavior, and it's temporal. We know how designers understand interactions, but how do people understand interactions? How do they know how to use a product or interactive product when they see one? How do they learn that? People learn about how things work from the everyday things in the world around them. We call it natural interactions. For example, in this case, we see the bubbling of the water and steam, which indicates the food is cooking. In Industrial Design 3, we have translated people's knowledge and familiarity of everyday things into three concepts: feedback, attention, and status. We use these three concepts for the design of interactive products. Feedback is the object's immediate reaction to a person's action. In this case, you see sound and light. Attention. Attention is an alert, is an object's output. It's a way of telling the person, the user, that something had changed. In this example, the beep at the end of the process tells the user that it has finished. In the same way as the steam and the bubbling water was telling the user what's going on with the cooking task, a status tells the person what's going on with the object. In summary, an interaction flow is a conversation between the user and the product or the system that he or she is interacting with. It consists of an input and an output, which is in the object, in the technology, an action and reaction, which is about the behavior of what the person does to the object, how the object responds to the person. And it also consists of three concepts that I just presented to you: feedback, attention, and status, which are the elements that we're going to use to shape the physical aspect of the product, so that persons understand what the product is intended to do, what the functions are, and how the interaction works. More on these concepts are presented in tiny bits as well in the interactive product design blog that I created for this unit. Please visit it. You can access it through our Industrial Design 3 Padlet, which is in Blackboard.